Yes, 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 yes. Eh,
That's okay.
on behalf of Philosophy family, I extend a hearty welcome to all of you, and I extend a good morning to Prachi Madam because
Thank
she's at the United States of America. Now it is morning there. So on behalf of Philosophy family, I extend my welcome to all the scholars of philosophy and other disciplines to be with us in this Sunday webinar. I extend my pranam to Vishnu sir, to Ranjit sir, to Professor Radhan sir, Brundavan sir, Professor Sesadri, and all other senior senior professors of different subjects to be with us to witness the talk of Madam Prachi Trivedi. And you all know that today we have invited Dr. Prachi Trivedi, Assistant Research Scientist, Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics, Texas A&M University, Texas, United States of America. And Madam Prachi has already been associated with Philosophy family before. So she is well known to all of us. And today our topic is impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion on the scientific research enterprise. Though it happens to be a technical paper, but it is very much significant for the modern research scholars of social science and science. And it will unfold our dimension of thought on social and scientific research. And Dr. Prachi Trivedi has already contributed a lot of paper to different international journals, and they all have been published. And she has a lot of a contribution towards the intellectual world. I will not explore all the things of Madam Prachi. Today we are happy that she has given her consent to be the speaker of today's webinar. And I extend my welcome to Dr. Pramod Kumar Das, host and convener. And I also welcome Dr. K. Rao, the moderator of Philosophy Family. With this, once again, I extend my welcome to all of you to be with us on this Sunday webinar. And without uh, losing the time, I request Madam Prachi Trivedi to commence her speech on the scheduled topic. Over to Madam Prachi.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank all of you at Philosophy Family for joining today for this talk. Dr. Pramod Kumar Das, Dr. Moharana, and Dr. Om Narayan Rao for extending this kind invitation. As Dr. Moharana mentioned, that I am from the science field, not philosophy is not my subject area of expertise, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit um, at the intersection of social sciences and scientific research, and I hope everyone will find that interesting. Um, and most importantly, I want to thank Dr. Amita Valmiki. She is my aunt, and but more than that, she's a friend and she's a inspiration to me in my work and in my life. So thank you, Dr. Valmiki. I think she has just joined. Yeah, I can see her. Hi. So she's the one who introduced me to this group, the To Philosophy Family. And although I haven't been able to join all the lectures in live, I do watch the YouTube recordings, and it's been very helpful for me to understand the discussions that go on in this group. So with that, I will start my PowerPoint. So can I share my, let me see if I can share. Okay. Can everyone see my slideshow?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, again, this is just an introduction to the topic today: impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion on scientific research enterprise. Uh, as I mentioned, I am an associate research scientist in biochemistry and biophysics at Texas A&M University in the USA. So before I jump into my topic, I just want to talk a little bit about my journey in science, because I think that will be relevant, that will become relevant a little bit further in the talk, because the talk I'm giving today will is a reflection upon what I have learned while doing research in science and while being a scientist, both in India as well as in the US. And my journey through science what has influenced the views that I'll be sharing today, regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in science research. So my journey in science began in Mumbai. I did my undergraduate, my BSc in Life Sciences at Xavier's in Mumbai. Many of you are probably familiar with that college. From then on, I went to do my master's in biochemistry at MS University, Baroda. Uh, and then from there, I moved to the United States, to Wayne State University in Michigan, to do my PhD in immunology, which is the study of the immune system, basically the part of your body that helps defend the body against diseases, against viruses, bacteria. So the study of the immune system. And from there, I went on to do postdoctoral research fellowship at Harvard University in Boston, Massachusetts. There also, my subject of research was the immune system, understanding how the immune system is regulated and how it helps fight cancer, and how to turn off immune system in autoimmune diseases. So this journey led me to eventually my current position, which is a research scientist at Texas A&M University in biochemistry and biophysics. Uh, so the reason I'm showing all these pictures of these buildings, these are all very old, prestigious institutions of learning. And what I understood from my journey through these institutions is the guiding principles in all of these institutions, the main guiding principle was a conscientious pursuit of excellence. So, why does going to a good institution allow you to become successful in your journey, whether it's science, whether it's any other subject, is because they create an environment which allows every individual to excel in whatever work they choose to do. So in my case it was scientific research, but when I reflect upon it, I feel that the ethos or the environment that is created in such places is what allows every individual to do their work in a best possible way, and to bring out the potential of every individual. And this is important to the talk today, because this is what we are going to explore today: is how do we create an environment where we allow for diverse individuals to excel. So a little bit about my current position. I am at Texas A&M in the lab of Dr. Vishal Gohil, who's a brilliant scientist, also happens to be my husband, and is Dr. Valmiki's nephew. But most importantly, he is a great scientist and a leader of the lab. And this is our entire group. I'm somewhere here in the back. I hope people can see this. Yeah. Uh, and this is our building, the Interdisciplinary Life Sciences building at Texas A&M University. Our lab is located on the second floor. So it's a beautiful place to work in. This is our entire team. And as you can see, it's made up of a diverse group of people, different nationalities, different religions, different countries, different languages, different age groups, and different aims and goals in life. But we work together. And our area of research is mitochondrial biochemistry, genetics, and medicine. So just to simply explain in very basic terms, what we do is we study the mitochondria, which are basically the energy generating uh, units inside our cells. So they make the energy which allows for cells and bodies to function. And what we do is we use cells, human cells, mouse cells, we use mice, we use zebrafish. So we use various different models, biological models, to study genes that are involved in the function or to make a functional mitochondria. And then when you don't have a functional mitochondria, when you have a mutation in the mitochondria, the cells cannot make energy, and this results in some kind of a disease. So our ultimate goal is to study the function of the gene and then figure out what the disease is, and then hopefully come up with a drug or a treatment for that disease. Currently, we have been able to, over the last 10 years, work on a disease called Menkes disease, and we are currently working towards a potential treatment, a drug that we are hoping to take to clinical trials and work on it to get it into human patients soon. So this is just an overview of the science or the technical part of what I do day to day, what our team looks like, and what our scientific goals are. But why am I giving a talk to philosophy family, right? Uh, when Dr. Dash invited me and Dr. Valmiki said, yeah, you can come and give a talk at Philosophy Family, I for a second was reflecting upon what is my connection to philosophy. And I realized, looking back on my journey, that I do have one degree that maybe allows me to think a little bit philosophically about my work and about how we do science. So when graduate students join our lab to do a PhD, I always ask them to reflect upon what their degree is. So the degree that we get is PhD, which is Doctorate of Philosophy. It is not a Doctorate of Science. So what does that mean? That means when you come to graduate school, when you want to do a PhD, you are learning a way of thinking about science, a way of doing science. It's not just about learning how to do an experiment or how to grow cells or study mitochondria. It's learning about the philosophy of science. What do I mean by philosophy of science? So basically, what philosophy of science means is you learn to ask the right questions that leads to a hypothesis. You learn to design and perform the most appropriate experiments that will help you to answer those questions. You make observations and interpret the data or the results and draw the right conclusions, create scientific knowledge based on those conclusions. And the scientific knowledge that we create is objective and unbiased. So, most of you, if I can just stop sharing for a second and see, if I asked most of you, do you think that scientific knowledge is unbiased and objective? If you can just show hands on your screen. Yes, yes. So most people, I see a few hands going up. So yeah, so most of us believe that scientific knowledge is unbiased and objective. What do we mean by that? It means that, for example, let's say a very simple experiment, if you're doing, at what temperature does water boil? Okay. So if I do the experiment, if Dr. Valmiki does the experiment, if I see who Khushi Sheikh does the experiment, or Dr. Shishadri does the experiment, all of us will see the same result. Water boils at 100 degrees, right? So yes, scientific knowledge is objective and it is unbiased. But the bigger question now is the process of science or scientific research is that unbiased and is that objective? So, what do I mean by the process of science and generation of scientific knowledge? That is what we call the scientific research enterprise. That what that means is just how is scientific research conducted, who are the different players involved in scientific research, and what do we get out of it as a society. So in most countries, the scientific research enterprise works somewhat like this. Um, Definitely in US and in some of what I know from the Indian scientific research enterprise, what we have is a central agency, usually run by the government, such as the National Institute of Health or National Science Foundation in the US, or the DBT, Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology in India. These agencies grant grants and fellowships, awards, which is basically they grant funds to various research teams, such as university research labs, research institutes, hospitals, to do a particular type of research. So, just like my lab, we receive funding from the National Institute of Health to ask the question about how do mitochondria work, what genes are involved, what diseases, so on and so forth. So, the research teams are the ones who conduct the research, and then they publish this research in scientific journals, at conferences and meetings. So we create scientific knowledge. And based on this knowledge, again, the central agency will make certain decisions about what research to continue funding and what is the agenda of the research agency uh, in terms of where the scientific research enterprise should progress. So this in itself seems like a very good sort of a setup to do scientific research, and it seems pretty straightforward that yeah, you give money, the researchers do some experiments, they figure out some scientific knowledge, and then it goes on in a circle, right? But what is the bigger question is who is giving these funds. In most cases, because it is a government agency, funds are coming from taxpayers, which is you and I, people like us who pay our taxes. Some of them are earmarked for research, for scientific research, and then they are awarded to science teams. But who is making the decisions about who gets which grant, who gets a fellowship, what kind of research is being done? The most important part of the scientific research enterprise is who is asking the questions. So I said research teams, so teams like ours. So there are scientists, there are students, there are doctors, there are social science researchers, everyone together who's asking these questions. And ultimately, the scientific knowledge that we generate, who is benefiting from all of this knowledge that we are generating via scientific research. So let's see um, what why are we interested in asking these questions about who is giving the funds, who's making the decisions, who's asking the questions, and ultimately who is benefiting from this, right? And what is the role that diversity, equity, and inclusion can play in this entire enterprise, right? So before we jump into that, let me take a minute to talk about what is diversity, equity, and inclusion in science research. So let's understand what is DEI. So DEI is a conceptual framework that promotes the fair treatment and full participation of all people. This is a definition given by the American Psychological Association. So to put it in simple words, what does diversity mean? These three terms are actually very related, but they are very different. Diversity means you have representation of different social identity groups, such as age, race, ethnicity, gender, religion, culture, and sexual orientation. Equity means recognizing that all of these different people coming from different groups don't all start at the same level of expertise, same level of training, same level of potential. So, what is our role in terms of providing equity is to provide resources to help the underrepresented groups achieve their full potential. And what does inclusion mean? Inclusion means that you not only bring the diverse people, give them the equitable um, resources, but also create an environment that welcomes, celebrates, and involves all of these different perspectives, styles, and experiences, and ensures that everyone feels a sense of belonging. So, this all three things go hand in hand: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I'm hoping to do in the rest of this talk is to see, really reflect upon, do we have DEI? Do we have diversity, equity, and inclusion in our science research? Should we be bringing this concept in, and how does it benefit us all? Okay, so let's see who is asking the questions. Okay, these are the research teams that are asking the relevant questions to generate scientific knowledge. So one of the best ways to see who are the best researchers is, of course, look at who is winning the Nobel Prize, right? This is a very broad, very sort of a general way of looking at, oh, who are the famous scientists, if you want to just put it very, very broadly. And what we immediately noticed through this graph, which was published by Statista earlier in the year, that since its inception in 1901 until 2023, from the total Nobel Prize awards that were given, 905 were received by men and 65 by women scientists. So obviously there is a big gender gap here. If we look a little bit deeply into the science Nobel laureates, science includes medicine, chemistry, physics, as well as economics. And we look at the diversity there. We see that there are 710 men scientists who have received this award, 29 women, one black. Black includes all people of the race from Africa, from US, from all over South Africa, Australia, all over the world, not just African Americans, but African origin people from all across the world. It's one. And two Indians by nationality. There have been other Indians who have won, but they have won after they have gone to other countries and worked there. So if we see by gender, by race, by nationality, there is really very poor representation. What does this mean? Does this mean that the women or people of different race or different nationalities are not smart enough? No, of course, that's not the case. We all know that. This means that they have not been included over the years in this scientific research enterprise. They have not been given the time, the resources, the training, and the access to this machinery, this entire scientific research machinery. We are not participating in asking the questions. We are not participating in making decisions about who gets funded, what kind of research gets funded, and who benefits. Okay. So clearly there is a gap in the diversity in the people who are asking the questions. Let's look at now what type of questions are being asked. Okay, because this is very important. Based on who asked the question, the type of question being asked or the type of scientific investigation that's being done can change. So here on the left, what I have is we have this fantastic program called PubMed. It is a search engine which allows you to type in the name of anything that you're interested in. And in biomedical research, this is run by the National Library of Medicine in USA. And what it does, it pulls up all the research articles that have been published on that topic. So just to get a sense, this is again a very broad and generalized sense of how many research papers were published on COVID. So if you look here, this is 43,887 pages of result, which amounts in 438,862 research papers that are published on COVID, which was just from the year 2020 when COVID was identified and we had the big pandemic until 2024, 25 now, let's say 25 coming out, new papers coming out in 25. This is how many research articles have been published. That means so many labs and researchers are working on understanding COVID, which is fantastic because COVID affected all of us. It was a global pandemic and it was a fast spreading problem. So, of course, a lot of labs got suddenly interested in studying this. But if I do the same kind of search right on the right here for chikungunya, which is prevalent in India and has been around for longer than COVID, we see there's only 813 pages of results. Of course, this is not insignificant. 813 pages is 8,000 research articles, but the difference seems too large. Yes, COVID was very scary. It was a big problem. It was global. So I'm not saying that it's not surprising that there are so many papers on COVID, but there's clearly not enough being done on chikungunya. Why that is the case, of course, is a question to reflect upon because, again, like I said, what questions are being asked or what research is being pursued depends on who are the people asking those questions and who are the people making decisions about funding and about the direction of scientific research. So, and what is the relevance of the problem at hand? For example, chikungunya, maybe not anybody in the Western world or researchers in the Western world would be too concerned about this because we don't see cases of chikungunya over here. But of course, back home in India, this is a very relevant problem in our society today. So is dengue and of course malaria, which has been around forever, right? But let's say we take another example of something that's more equitable across the board, okay, which is both Western countries, Eastern countries, everywhere in the world. Let's look at some issues which are related to gender research, right? So prostate cancer, if I do the same kind of search, I get 21,990 pages of results, which is fantastic. There has been a lot of progress on prostate cancer. It affects mostly men age 60 or 65 and above. It can be lethal. And so there has been a lot of research on understanding prostate cancer, different stages, different treatments, and so on and so forth. But let's look at a woman-related problem, preeclampsia, which happens during pregnancy and has been around forever. It affects women of childbirth age. I can see there are only 5,491 pages of result. Preeclampsia can be fatal. It affects young women. It affects newborns and is one of the greatest cause of mortality during pregnancy. And this has been around forever. The earliest paper that was found in 1914. So even in terms of the length of time we have been studying this, preeclampsia has been studied much longer. Unfortunately, still the number of people asking this question and trying to find solutions for this problem and publishing papers on it is much less, which again, if we think about it, reflects upon who is asking the question and what is the question being asked. Okay. So this was as far as research teams who's asking the questions and what questions are being asked. And we can already see that there is a big gap between different research problems based on who is allowed, not just allowed, but who has had the time, resources, and the training to ask the questions. And because of the gender, race, as well as nationality gaps, we can see that the type of questions being asked are completely different, right? So now let's look at who is benefiting, right? Is this, or let's look at what is the type of scientific knowledge that is being generated. Is that objective and unbiased? So what is the type of knowledge that we are taking on? Is it benefiting everybody equally? So there is, of course, a gender bias, like I said, on who is asking the question. But even when the question is being asked and the information or the knowledge is generated, is it really truly unbiased in terms of the real benefit to the society? So here is a statement. It says, before 1993, women were rarely included in clinical trials. Today, the medical field still doesn't know how well many drugs and devices work for women. This is actually quite stunning if you think about it. Women is half of the population of the world. We think that most of the times when a drug comes to the market, there is no special instructions that if you are a woman, you should take this drug this way, or this drug will affect you this way, versus if you are a man, this is how it will affect you. If you're going to take a crocin or a paracetamol or a antibiotic, streptomycin, the instructions are same for everybody except in children, right? We say that, okay, if you're a child, your dose is different. But for men and women, the instructions are same. Now, before 1993, women were not included in clinical trials. And why is that? Because so by clinical trials, what I mean is before a drug comes to the market, it goes through small scale studies on 100 people, on 1,000 people to test if the drug is safe, if it is efficacious, and what is the minimal dose that should be given to have an effect. So this could be any drug. It could be a drug to treat a viral or bacterial infection. It could be a drug to treat arthritis or a headache or fever, any of these things, right? Or a vaccine, even we know during COVID, clinical trials that were done to test the safety of the COVID vaccine. Now, before 93, women were not included in these trials. These tests were just done on men. The reason for this was there was a danger of including women in trials if they happened to be pregnant, because a lot of drugs have a different effect on the fetus and can affect the pregnancy. That was one reason. The other reason is when women were so this is even before getting to clinical trials in labs. What people, scientists like me, we do this in our lab. We test these drugs on mice, on animals like mice, rats, and things. Even in that case, only the male mice were being used to test the drug. And why is that? This was because when they were including female mice, a lot of times because hormonal changes in the female, the results were affected. And they were a little bit more complicated than if you just worked with male mice. So researchers started sort of just using male mice to do all the studies because you get consistent results. There's not that much hormonal effect and fluctuation in male mice. And then when it came to clinical trials, also it was only women who were excluded, only men were included because they didn't want to deal with pregnancies and such. But over the years, what we started realizing is that when you do clinical trials only with men, you do not actually understand how certain drugs or devices work for women. So what we realize is women experience adverse effects from medicines at twice the rate of men. One 2013 study found that women with metal hip replacement, so I'm sure most of us have heard of hip replacement surgeries, 29% were more likely than men to experience an implant failure. This was due to anatomical differences and inadequate testing in women. Another example is heart disease. Only very recently, in 1999, has the American Heart Association put out a guideline that women experience heart attack symptoms in a very different way than men experience heart attack symptoms. And a lot of time, heart attacks in women go undiagnosed, or they are not realized in time, because we don't know to look out for symptoms which are different in women as compared to men. So all of this is reflecting a gender bias, because we did not do enough testing, we did not do enough things um, to include women in our clinical trials. So this is one type of bias that has come into that the scientific research community has become more aware of now. Okay, so what's another type of bias? This is social bias, and this a lot of us are very familiar with. Is social stigma and discrimination can affect scientific research progress. So here an example is the research that happened, research and treatment of HIV. Many of us are aware of how um, people with HIV were stigmatized in all over the world, not just in India, US, but all over the world, in Africa. So HIV stigma is negative attitudes and beliefs about people with HIV. So just believing that, oh, only certain type of people can get HIV, or they got infected, or they got virus because they did something wrong, or they deserve to get it, or they're bad people. This was all the stigma that was around um, HIV/AIDS infection. This stigma led to discrimination and treating of people with HIV differently than those without HIV. So because the stigma was created and there were all these negative attitudes, there was a lot of time and resources that were lost in trying to get to understanding HIV, understanding the infection, the pandemic, and developing treatments for people. So stigma can affect people's health and well-being and discourage people from engaging in HIV testing, prevention, and care, because people wanted to hide the fact that they had the infection, or doctors didn't want to take care of patients with HIV. Researchers didn't know where to go to look for samples to encourage people come out and do participate in clinical trials or treatment methodologies for HIV. So this is one of the very well-known viral infections that uh, is a clear example of how social bias can hinder and affect how scientific knowledge is generated, and how the scientific research enterprise is affected. So we've asked the question of who is asking the questions, the research teams. What is the type of scientific knowledge that we are generating? And as you can see, there is definitely a bias, and it is not very objective in terms of the knowledge that we are generating. Of course, the knowledge itself, the facts that are being generated are unbiased and objective, but the process of getting to those facts is not um, objective or unbiased. So how do we then make sure that we are including everybody in this scientific journey, right? Because as you can see, the not including people, either due to gender bias, social bias, due to lack of training, resources, etc., is definitely affecting and having a large impact on how we do science research. So how do we implement diversity, equity, and inclusion in science research? So these are very clear objectives that have been set forth in the US currently, and I think all over the world. I think even in India, this is now happening. People are recognizing the importance of actively including people into research. So recruiting diverse research teams. So you have to actively seek out researchers from diverse backgrounds, diverse identities. Then inclusiveness in research design. So when we design clinical trials, when we design research experiments, we need to consider the diversity of the population that we are designing these experiments for, or designing studies for, or collecting data from. We cannot afford to exclude large chunks of population from our research, because then whatever knowledge we generate is only relevant to a certain section of the society, and we cannot apply it globally and equitably to everybody. Then unconscious bias training. So train people, train your students, train your researchers to be aware of the unconscious bias that we all have. We are not trying to be exclusive, or we are not trying to ignore, but just the way the society works, the way we are all part of a society that works and we depend on each other. It's all a teamwork, but we all have implicit bias. And we have to become aware of this bias so that we can bring up strategies to mitigate this bias. And then also have transparent review processes. So these are people who are making decisions about what kind of research is being funded, who gets grants, who gets to publish their result. I have not gone into too much detail about the biases that exist in research publications, in getting research awards. There is bias throughout all of those aspects of the scientific research enterprise too. So we need to implement fair and equitable review procedures for research proposals as well as for publishing those results, right? So that the important questions that are being asked by a certain section of the society are not being completely ignored, or they're not just staying in the dark because they did not get enough funding to publish it, enough funding to continue their research. So these are all different ways of which we can implement diversity, equity, and inclusion in science research. So does having a diverse research team actually impact research outcomes? Does it actually work, having a diverse team? So there are many, many different studies, but I'm just going to focus on this recent one. I like this schematic representation that they have here on how diversity impacts the quality of research, which is measured by publications in the science field. The biggest way to measure your scientific productivity and quality is through how many papers you publish, and the quality of the papers that you publish, what kind of journals you're publishing in. So what this over several years is the differences in the type of publications that came from research groups that were diverse versus those that were not diverse. And I'll explain just a little bit what I mean by this. So they looked at two things on the left here. I'm not sure if you all can see the details of this slide, but it's okay. I'm just going to point out. They looked at group diversity, and then they looked at individual diversity. So, and here, this direction is increase in the average paper citation count. So the quality and type of research they published was higher in going from down to up. So the group that published the best results and the best science, was able to do the best science, had both high group diversity, which means the team of researchers was diverse. There's a brown, green, and orange, which means a team full of people that came from different backgrounds, different genders, different religions, different socioeconomic backgrounds, etc. They also had a lot of individual diversity. What does that mean? That each person in the group, outside of the group, had interactions with diverse people. So here is one, let's take an example of this, the first group of people who are doing research. Let's say this person in brown was the PI, or the principal investigator, or the head of the lab. This person also collaborated with a green person and an orange type of person outside of their research lab. Same thing for this, let's say this was a postdoctoral scientist in the lab. He had friends or collaborators that were of different religion, let's say, or different scientific training, or came from a different country. The same thing with this orange person. He had interactions with people from diverse groups. So there was individual diversity as well as group diversity. And these are the interactions then that resulted in the best science. Best quality of science, best amount of science. As we go down the chart, we see as individual diversity decreases, meaning each person in the team interacts only with the same type of people outside the team, your publication quality goes down. It's still pretty good because within the group you're still diverse. When we remove diversity from within the group, it's only one type of researchers, three men doing research together, but they still have some diverse interaction outside of the lab. Okay, their research is okay. And finally, we have just almost no diversity. It is just one type of people who are working together. It could just be like 8 women doing research, right? All 8 Indian women doing research together. They're still doing relevant research, but their impact or the quality or their outreach into the scientific community is much less because their research, they have not been able to include a lot of different points of view. It's a little bit narrow. It's focused in a very small way, and they do not have a big picture or a global perspective of how to bring out that research to the larger community. So obviously, diversity in research teams has a large impact on the quality, quantity, and type of research that you do. Why is this? Because what are the benefits of bringing DEI? It brings in different perspectives on the research question that we are asking. If we just take that example of the boiling water, if only one person was asking the question, does water boil at 100 degrees? That's where it would have stopped. But if there were diverse people in the group, another person might have said, hey, let's see if boiling water actually kills all the germs in that water. And then somebody else might have asked, hey, let's see how long does it take for that boiling water to cool off? Can we transport it in bottles and provide clean water to people who don't have water? So bringing diverse people into your group leads to more thoughtful research, and benefits more people. It leads to innovative study design. Um, we have realized in our lab itself, we are fortunate to have a very diverse group of people, and what we realize is people who come from different socioeconomic backgrounds have very interesting ways of studying things or coming up with innovative ideas because they have faced some obstacles in their lives, that allow them to think differently. So a lot of the times we notice that students or researchers who come from India, including myself, also Vishal, we have come from India. We have this tendency in our research labs to do what we call jugaad, which I think many of us are familiar with that term, where we think of different ways of putting together the resources that we have because we come from a background of limited resources, which has given us this edge on thinking about how can we do more and more with less resources, right? So we bring in a very innovative way of designing our experiments. Then what having diversity creates is borderless research. This allows us to have a broader impact. If we have people in our group from different countries, from different geographical regions, from different climates, then we are able to ask questions and answer those questions in a broad way that can be applied to everybody in different places, right? If we are just doing research in an American lab with just American people or whatever, and we're just looking at this one slice of society or of the world, then we are not able to think of the broader impact of our research. It also creates a culture of mutual respect. So from my own experience, so this is what I was talking about, all these institutions that I went through, whether in India, in Mumbai, in Baroda, in the US, what it allowed me, the reason I am able to do science research today at a premier institute in America is because all of these institutions allowed me to reach my full potential in terms of excelling at my work. And that was only possible because they created an environment of mutual respect, of inclusion. At no point did I feel that, oh, as a woman, as a Indian, as a somebody who came from a background where my very Marathi background in Mumbai, my English was not that very good. It took me a long time to understand the cultural or the social fabric of the American society. But despite all those differences, I always felt respected as a student of science as well as a researcher of science. And this only happens when institutions and people in those institutions create this culture of mutual respect. And that brings out the best potential in all of us in all different ways. And ultimately, including everybody results in more effective and impactful solutions for the entire society. So a lot of times when people say, oh, there should be diversity, equity, inclusion, some people immediately think, oh, do you mean now we should start giving jobs to all these different groups and just allow them to become scientists or give them all these positions? No, that is not what that means. What it means is you allow for them to have the same time, resources, and support that a certain group of people has always had. We're trying to get the same conditions to apply to a broader population so that we as a society can all benefit from this immense potential that's present in all of us. But if we don't allow for a large section of our society to even participate in this thing, we don't give them the chance, the resources, the ability, or the time to reach that full potential, then it's a big loss to all of us as a society itself. So this is not about just benefiting one individual group or another individual group or one type of person. It is about making sure that we as an entire society can reach our entire potential. And this was very obvious during COVID, where the entire world was forced to come together. From different corners of the world, people just put forth their best uh, ideas, their best foot, their potential, their resources, everything. And we were, as a entire global population, able to control the pandemic effectively. So having diversity and recognizing diversity in our society is beneficial to all of us. And we can consciously make efforts to include this in our scientific research enterprise. And um, is our ability to reach unity in our diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization, uh, which was said by Mahatma Gandhi. And I think this is relevant in every slice of our society, that we have to recognize uh, that diversity, equity, and inclusion ends up getting us to a much better place in the society in every aspect, including science research. So, with that, I will say thank you. And any questions, discussions, anything?
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Trivedi, for your thought-provoking presentation on the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion on the scientific research enterprise. And Madam, you have given a conceptual analysis of this issue, which has sensitized all of us. Um, and really, it is an excellent topic, and and you have made it very clear. And you have said that DI is a conceptual framework which needs full participation of all people so that everyone feels a sense of belongingness. And you have raised a question as to if the type of scientific knowledge generated the objective or unbiased. And you have given different studies during COVID and during many scientific research like chikungunya, prostate cancer, preeclampsia, and all other um, clinical research in different parts of our globe. And you have reflected that women experience adverse effect from medications at twice the rate of men. And women were rarely included in clinical trials before 1993. And today, the medical field still does not know how will many drugs and devices work for women. So there are different issues of the diversity of women and other groups. And you have also given the causes of it, that you have stated that social bias, social stigma, and discrimination can affect the scientific research progress in different parts of our globe. And you have also said that how to implement DI in scientific research, and you have given the solution that that is the DEI can educate researchers in respect of bias and strategies to mitigate it, and it needs the transparency in reviewing for research and publications, etc. You have given so many things that I should not want to reflect upon all the things, and DEI can reflect new prosperities in scientific progress that you have asked and you have faced in life while you are doing research in that is in America, and with the people of different parts of her globe. And you have said that there you have faced the culture of mutual respect, and which is the unity in diversity, and which
which
reflects
reflects
the
the
beauty of
beauty
her
of her
culture.
culture.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much,
madam,
madam,
for your very very
very
very excellent
excellent
paper.
paper.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Now, I would
Now, I
like
would
to
like to
request
request
Professor
Professor
Dr.
Dr.
K.
K.
Omanarao
Omanarao
to
to
carry in the
carry the
interactive
interactive
session.
session.
Over to Dr.
Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes. You made a very beautiful analysis of this critical paper. Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Rao.
Namaskar. Um, what I could see is a presentation of a different type. Actually, the way the research is done, the way things are presented, well, we don't address normally here in India the way Dr. Prachi has done, because the way of presentation is something unique, something different, and I really appreciate that attempt. And I learned how to express uh, something that is very difficult in very precise and clear terms, and I could see that in Dr. Prachi madam. Well, um, uh, 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 the title looked technical, but without making a reference to technical terminology, she tried to explain things, and the questions that she could generate after a talk, they are more philosophical than technical. So she clearly has brought in all of us not to the technical arena but to the philosophical fold. So now her presentation is open for discussion, and it's more philosophy than science I see here. So with these words, her presentation is open for discussion. To start with, let us move with Professor Sesadri, because he's somewhere outside and it is very late in the night. Okay, see, he's in Australia. It is very late in the night. So let us go with Professor Sesadri. Sir, please, your comments and your questions, sir. Please. Namaskar, sir. Please.
No, it was a wonderful presentation as I just communicated. The thing that arises in my mind is there is no research that is independently funded by anyone anywhere in the world. Either we are free individuals, for example, in philosophy, we don't depend on grants for research. We do it ourselves because it's an independent effort. And only when a student is recognized for his PhD, he or she gets a grant for postdoctoral research. That is the situation in almost every subject. But the person who gives the money also wants the returns on that. And the entire field of medicine, applied science, is based on the profit motive. They are not doing charity. So every research in science is focused only on the cost benefit ratio, the one who funds it, whether individuals, institutions, or corporates. The problem arises when we come to humanities and social sciences. Even here, what we find is some areas of research cover large sections of society, and there are also sections of society that is kept out of the scope of research because governments, in their wisdom, think of restricting the funding because of lack of financial support. They cannot increase taxes. They give subsidies. I think almost all over the world this is a practice. So how are you going to prioritize research that has value towards mankind? This is a question that always keeps our mind engaged. Philosophically speaking, we are all one. We have no, when you talk of philosophy, men or women, we have only human beings. When it comes to certain activities of human beings, yes, there are functional dispositions that determine that. The question is, take for example, the case of physically challenged, differently able sportsmen. How much benefit do they get? Funding do they get? Compared to those stars who can find any amount for anything. Because I belong to a college which had produced Olympians. Some of my students were Olympians, and our director also was a national, international coach. But then when it comes to funding, how much and where we go, the same applies to certain subjects. When it comes to disciplines, choice of subjects. So this will remain. The only option I find is, as you said, if there is diversity, there is bound to be. Just as my thinking, if it expands in horizon, I think better definitely. Otherwise, I think everyone will be like frogs croaking in the same well throughout their life, and neither knowledge can progress, nor humanity can do better. This is what I wanted to share. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Sisadri. Well, we wish to go with Dr. Ghosh, but prior to him, let us listen to Khushi Sheikh because he was because I could find the hand raised. Some yes, Khushi Sheikh. Yes, anything to say, please? Okay, okay. I don't find the response. Well, we'll go with Dr. Ghosh. Dr. Ranjit Ghosh, sir, please. Sir, namaskar. Please, your observations. Sir, please unmute, sir. Dr. Ghosh, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, I'm audible. But thank you, Dr. Rao. But Dr. Trivedi is probably disconnected.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, so sure. Yeah, thank you. So I have some observations. You see,
Yes.
This thing that you are bringing into the scientific research, I must thank you for taking us into a new area where we can have discussion and we can break our heads, I should say, because as philosophers, we are
Yes.
totally out of these things. Now, the thing is, this module which you are applying, and this DEI module, it is normally adopted by the corporates, and they are a human HR, and they also, along with this equity, inclusive, and diversity, they also try to include two other concepts: accessibility and belonging. You see, but I think this accessibility is most important so far as scientific research is concerned, because
Yes.
you could make your presence there. You could have the accessibility to all the research techniques which are not found in India normally. So you could progress in that to some extent. Now the thing is, this module, when they in the financial sector, they include many companies. They have tried to enhance their profit through this DEI module. So, but in scientific research, you are not going to do that. What you are doing in science, it will just for the sake of the humanity as a whole. So that no profit making is there in case of science. So these two things are also relevant in my opinion. How would you react to this? I do not know. Accessibility and belonging, we definitely require so far as scientific research is concerned. Now, my second observation on this is that, yes, gender bias in clinical trials, which you have mentioned, that it is just not a rule that any clinical trials will be made on the men folk and not on the women folk. This is what I believe. You also subscribe to this. On certain issues, certain sectors, of course, this may be possible, but not in all sectors. And lastly, I would like to mention that you have mentioned about culture of mutual respect in scientific research, which probably you are enjoying and you have experienced in the US scientific research organizations, but this thing is very much missing in India. I have seen my friends, they have complained on this issue, that this sort of mutual respect, this culture is very much missing in India so far as scientific research is concerned. But not only this, I can bring this to the field of social research and the research on humanities. Also, you will find certain this type of mutual respect is very much missing here, because when somebody is working on some project, then we have to be very, and he's giving us some idea about it. So we have to be very careful, and we should listen him properly so that we can get something out of it. But instead of doing that, we'll just say, no, it is not the way that you are presenting. So this sort of thing is just pulling, leg pulling, and this is very much found in India. So these are 2-3 observations I have made. Your reactions, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. If I might just quickly answer some of the points that you bring up. So yes, accessibility and belonging, of course, are both very important points. And I guess here they sort of include that in equity and inclusion. Sort of equity meaning equitable resources, which means, for example, disabled or differently abled people, or people from a different socioeconomic background, we should make sure that we create resources for them. The biggest thing for scientific research, also what Dr. Sheshadri was mentioning about it being a for-profit industry, especially biomedical research. People are looking to make profit. Yes, that is one very big aspect of biomedical research. Drug companies or whoever is trying to make a profit out of something. But the large part of scientific research or the research machinery is just engage in understanding the principles of science or basic science, what we call here the basic science research. The important thing to note here is science research in the US is largely driven by taxpayer money, which means we all, from all parts of the society, are paying taxes, some of which is going into research. Yet, we are all not included in making the decisions of what type of research should be done, what questions should be asked, what benefits should we be looking to get through that research, right? That part becomes very narrow. Although we are all contributing, whether it's financially, whether it's through teaching science to our students, we are all involved in this part of the equation, but what comes out of the other part, we are not all benefiting from it. Um, so that's a big gap there based on uh, how we make sure that we include all sections of the society into not only just paying the taxpayer money to fund research, but to decide on what questions should be answered, how they should be answered, what should be the tangible benefits that we receive from doing this kind of thing. So that's one thing with accessibility and belonging, and also including everybody in the decision making steps in the scientific research enterprise. In terms of clinical trials, yes, this was before 1993, where there were no rules as such regarding who should be included. Or there were rules, but they were vague on who should be included in clinical trials. After that, NIH, which is National Institute of Health, has come up with very strict guidelines. Now we are required to include people of all genders. We are required to include different age groups, different race, different ethnicity, different nationalities in all clinical trials. So this has been a big change. And with the way biomedical research is going, we are going towards something called precision medicine, which means now we have the ability to understand each individual human's body based on their genes or genomic structure and design medicine specifically to treat that one person. So this is something which we never actually looked at before. Like a lot of times somebody will say that, oh, if I have a headache, crocin works best for me, and somebody else will say aspirin works best for me. Crocin doesn't really do anything. If I have a headache, I can take 2 crocin and my headache doesn't go away. But somebody else will say, I'll take a half crocin and my headache is gone. But we never pay attention to these things, that why is it like that? If it's a medicine and it's supposed to work on the human body, it's supposed to work the same on everybody. But then these are the things that as biomedical researchers we are realizing, all of these differences, and they are real and tangible. And in the science field, everything is data driven. So we have to everything is quantitative. So we put numbers on everything, and only when the numbers are put out there that the changes actually happen. So there has to be research done on the research enterprise to get that data. And now we are getting those kind of data, and we are getting those kind of analysis where we are seeing the downside of not including everybody at all stages of the research enterprise. We shouldn't just ask everybody to pay their taxes so we have money to do research, and then just hand that money to a select few type of people to drive the research, because then they are going to ask questions based on their personal experiences or what is important to them. But they may not realize this implicit bias that's there, where they are not thinking about, oh, preeclampsia is so important for women who are having a baby right now and who are suffering from preeclampsia. For them, that is a life and death question. For a man who is doing this research, it's not that he's not sensitive or he doesn't understand or whatever. I mean, but it's just not in front and center of their brain, right? This is, I mean, men, women, gender bias is just one type of bias, or one type of sort of exclusion that we have. But this is all over, like you said, people with disabilities or people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and accessibility issues are definitely a big problem. So I agree with all the points you brought up, Dr. Ghosh. And as a scientific research community, there's definitely now a bigger awareness of involving people from all of these things. And culture of mutual respect. I don't know if I was just lucky or I happened to be in the right institutions, even in India, but in Xavier's, in Baroda, and even now, I continue being involved with my departments back home. My professors in Baroda, recently when there were floods, I was talking to them, and I have taken a lot of good, positive lessons, encouragement, and support from them. So maybe I have had a different experience, but I do feel like even in India, we are absolutely capable of creating those environments of mutual respect. They are present, they are there. I feel like a lot of times it gets lost in the social media or the news and those kind of things. But at an individual level, in our own homes, in our societies, in our departments, I know at Junjunwala I see all your pictures. Amita ma'am has created a fantastic environment there. So it's totally possible. We just have to be aware. I think it has to be a conscious effort. This is why in science, when we put the data out there, it becomes so black and white that oh, I never thought of this, right? So that is what we need to do. We need to be very conscious and make that conscious effort that we are recruiting people. A lot of times we tend to not include people just because we don't have the time and patience to maybe help them reach the same starting point. So one of the things about inclusion or equity actually is to make sure that when you're about to start a race, everybody starts from that same line, the same starting point, right? But sometimes you may need to give extra time to somebody to get to that starting line. And that is where we are lacking. Because our lives are so fast and we're just focused on getting our thing done or whatever, that we are not willing to have that space and time and allowing people to come to that starting line and reach there at the same point, so that we can all progress from there together. So I think, yeah, in that sense, I think that culture of mutual respect is very important. And one thing I would say, the biggest difference that I have seen in the Indian sort of ethos or the scientific research community in India versus here is, here I have learned the art of listening, and listening with intent. So this is something in India that we sort of, I don't know, it's just because we're so many people and we don't have the resources or whatever, we don't actually listen. And this is something I see that I have worked on myself over the years, and I am making a conscious effort in my students to make them aware of this. A lot of times they start answering a question before I have finished asking a question, because they're assuming that I'm going to ask this or I'm going to say this, and they want to prove that they know something before before even listening. So this art of listening with intent, with really listening to what is the other person saying to you and what is their objective and how you should then answer precisely to what they have asked or what they have said. So yeah, that I do find as one of the biggest differences in the way we do discussions or the way we operate in India versus here, where no matter what your status, you might be really an undergraduate, a bachelor student, and you would be talking to a really, even a Nobel Prize winning scientist. They will listen to you till you finish talking entirely. It might be the simplest of questions that you're asking them. They will listen to you and then they will answer precisely to. There are no assumptions made. There is no sort of preconceived notion. So they leave it open and then they listen. So that is something, yes, I do agree that we can work on. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shishadri, also.
Thank you, madam.
Dr. Rao,
Sir,
sir, first please invite Nandini madam. Then Amita Malvin madam will say, because she has raised her hand. Nandini.
Okay, Nandini madam, please. Nandini madam, I don't find her here. Well, she's there. Nandini madam. Yes, she's there. Well, I request Nandini madam to have her observations. Well, I don't find her.
Okay, otherwise.
She's there. She's
but here. Nandini, you ask your question. If you have any question, you had raised your hand.
Anyway.
Anyway,
yes. In the meantime, well, she gets ready. We have with us Professor Valmiki, and I found her in a very thinking mood. Okay, Let us learn from her what she has in mind. Well, please, Dr. Valmiki, please, your observations and questions.
Uh, Dr. Trivedi, it was wonderful and always, as always, very thought provoking. Um, I had some questions and some comments as well. In the beginning, you asked, is it objective science? Is objective? So I raised my hand. I physically, I mean, but I immediately put it down because it is both way. Uh, um, Science is objective, essentially speaking. I say the essence is tatvik तौर पे. It is, of course, objective. The structure and the environment in which it thrives, which is very important, it is very subjective. So there are many issues, as you put forward. I was writing down, it is gender issue, which is, women are lagging behind or they are not provided with that kind of incentive. Socio-economic groups formed, and then the stigma about certain diseases that also keeps away the scientific progress, that makes it subjective. Then cultural aspect is also there. So we require mutual respect. Michel Foucault, who spoke about politics, is a main reason behind the progress in any field, the political structure in the society. The postmodern philosopher Michel Foucault, he said that it is all, even the arts and sciences, everything is controlled by the political atmosphere that is existing. And this is the most dangerous aspect, because that only doesn't reflect only at national level, it is at international level. So whom you are tying up with. So it just it was echoing in my head regarding pre-Cold War and post-Cold War. And during the Cold War, how things changed. And there was actually no change. The superpowers remain powerful, and the scientific progress, whenever the names are taken of the countries, they remain ahead, and the allied forces at the same time. So everything is controlled, by politics. And this is the political situation in the country. One thing is that, and science is not left behind. It is not untouched. It is very much included. Secondly, uh, Simone de Beauvoir says that one is not born a woman, but becomes one. And this has come in your first part, which affects me very directly, because I always say I'm a feminist, and sometimes just to say that I'm a liberal feminist, because I I want to open the gate for all genders. It is not that only feminine. So this aspect is very, very important. So how do you connect ethics with science, which makes science either subjective or objective? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valmiki, for this analysis and your thoughts. That is a very loaded question. How do you connect ethics with science? So, yeah, this is entirely true that the scientific machinery, it's like any other industry. It is affected by politics, political views. It is affected by morality of human beings that are involved in making all these decisions. We have faced this in the US throughout our research. We have faced obstacles where people with no morals or no ethics have hindered our research, have hindered our progress. And the only answer to that, I would say, is to recognize it at an individual level and to make efforts to promote it at an individual level. A lot of this thing is beyond our control when it comes on, not so much in our control when it comes to politics. Yes, of course, we can vote, we should participate in the political machinery as much as we can, but our expertise lies in our field of work. And what I have noticed is when you allow this space for diverse opinions, diverse backgrounds, and diverse things to come together with mutual respect, people tend to go towards their better selves. So there is, because what happens is if you are 10 people in a room and 7 or 8 of you are trying to make an environment that doesn't make another person feel left out, it makes them feel included. It may be because their political views are different, or they come from a different gender, or a different language speaking, or a different nationality. When they feel that they are getting the same respect as the rest of the team, they tend to move towards you, towards being included and towards being inclusive, and they tend to cater to their better selves. And I feel like this is the only way for us to make sure to start at an individual level and to keep our doors open and to keep our minds open all the time, no matter what the opposite party is doing, no matter what the neighboring lab is doing, no matter what matters. So when I was at Harvard, I have seen this culture. It is a super competitive place. uh, there is a culture of mutual respect and there is excellence, but there is also tremendous pressure to perform at a very high level all the time. So there is competition, and competition of course ends up in internal sort of turmoil and fights and people trying to step over each other and things like that. But you also constantly see these pillars in your community that stay and that follow all the principles and the ethics and the morals and lead the path, showing that even with following those morals and ethics and things, you can do good science, you can do good research, you can include everybody. So the only way I feel, or what we can do, is be those examples, keep ourselves on that path, so that we are able to create those environments and show that this can happen and this can exist. So that is my thing of how do I bring or keep. I am
Yes.
not sure if I can change another person's ethics that much or
Yes.
have an influence on that. The only thing I can do, I think, is make my ethics clear and say, with these ethics and with these morals, I can do this work and I can include people and I can support all genders, I can support all viewpoints, and we can create this space.
Yeah.
That
Thank you
is
so much. Thank you.
what I would say.
Madam, just one point what I have observed. You must have experienced it. There is definitely, take the case of Nobel nominations. There you will find gender bias and racial bias. And you see, so far as Indians are concerned, only we can name the name of Hargobind Khurana, and no other person working very prominently in the field of your biotechnology, or they have not been taken into the panel for getting award. So that is definitely in scientific community what I have experienced during my lifespan. I have had some friends in the Bhava Atomic Research Center there. They always, in all the scientific organizations, these things are very much there. And we talking of this DI and all these things were not there. There was a cutthroat competition that how one will override over others. And in the process, in US also, you must be experiencing this, that in Nobel nominations, you will find very few of the people from other races and other genders. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've had the privilege of actually meeting Dr. Khurana and spending some time with him when I was at Harvard. My postdoctoral advisor, Dr. Strominger, and Dr. Khurana were very good friends. So I did speak with him And at that time, I was still very young and a new researcher. So I very naively asked him why he left India and came to the US, and what does he think about Indian research. And because at that time I was considering maybe going back to India and doing continuing my research in India. And he had very clearly said that what you're saying right now is there is a lack of a path for researchers from different backgrounds to be able to really significantly make a name, or rather be able to bring their research to the forefront. It's not that we don't have the ability, of course we do. We have the brain power, we have the willingness to work hard, but we haven't created those paths. And this is why it is important that we try to get involved in all aspects of scientific research. We try to make conscious effort to involve ourselves not only in our day-to-day experiments, but to question who are the people. Get involved in grant admission, get involved in publications, editorial boards of journals. Make sure that you are creating US. A large part of the US biomedical research machinery is running on the backs of immigrant scientists. If you see Nobel Prizes, there are several Indian uh, people of Indian origin, Asian origin, who have won Nobel Prizes, but from labs in the US. So, what can we do? How does that help Indian scientists in India? So also there's a large effort to do collaborative science with back home. Like I said before, I still keep in touch with my university in India with a conscious understanding that I want to share this. The part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you all also is people like me are able to share our experiences to students, especially back home, to professors, to the decision makers back home, so that we can figure out a better way to make a path for everybody, to see how can we bring in structures and bring in people to make this happen. It's definitely not happening, and it's not going. My bigger point is that uh, unless we bring this into a consciousness of every person, we cannot just wait for somehow the system will suddenly change. We are the system, and we need to somehow make these small steps and efforts to make sure that we raise our voices, and we consciously make an effort to change the system for the next generation and the generations coming after us, so that we do have Nobel laureates, or we do have recognition for the work that is being done in India by Indian scientists, or anywhere in other countries, other communities in Africa, in wherever, Asia, China. We bring in a voice. We make sure that we are not ignoring those things. Thank you.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Well, we have with us Dr. Radhanath Bera, sir. Dr. Behra, please. Sir, please. Sir, your questions,
thank
sir.
you.
Sir,
Thank you.
questions,
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Professor Prachi Trivedi, I cannot just congratulate you for divulging so many secrets from the US scientific community. You have become not only Trivedi, you have become Chaturvedi. Four strands of thought: equity, diversity, as well as your inclusion. They are all synthesized. That is the fourth one. That's why I say you are not only confined to Trivedi, better you change to Chaturvedi. Okay. Now, ideas coming to my mind as a student of science. Long back, when the Odisha Chief Minister Biju Patnaik brought the great geneticist JBS Halden to Bhubaneswar in Odisha. He had thought that Indian mind, particularly the people of Odisha, are not aware of the nuances of science and scientific research. But after coming to Bhubaneswar and settling down here till his death, Professor Halden did not discount the people's mind in Odisha. He said they are as inquisitive as any people in the West, but one thing they are lacking is adventurousness. So, in scientific research, what is important is you move in the dark, not knowing what would come out of it, but it needs a lot of courage and boldness of thought and to question things. Uh, Clearly, every knowledge springs from philosophy. That's why when you start with the MPhil, Master of Philosophy, the first question is, what is your philosophy? That is, what is the new thing that you are going to present? Philosophy is all about discovery of truth. Something comes to my mind regarding this gender bias again in science. Science does not recognize in any danger, but then when research is going on about monkeys and mouse, particularly because of their genetic resemblance with human beings, you said rightly that females are not encouraged because of the problems like pregnancy and so on and so forth. I had always put humorously, of course, to women doctors who have more diseases, women or men. They used to simply laugh it away. But I supplement it because of gynecologists, uh, the number of diseases or related diseases increase in women compared to men. But we have our prostate cancer and most of the cancers that you come across in the US also is related to prostate cancer. You might be having that idea. Now, the question is, as Shakespeare brilliantly pointed out in one of his female characters, like when you scratch us, do we not bleed? Scratching gives you pain. It cuts your surface of skin and it bleeds. When you scratch us, we bleed as our human and male counterparts bleed. So how are you going to distinguish between them and us? In one article I had read in the Time magazine long back regarding the function of the human brain, which is still mysterious, not only for the brain scientists, but also philosophers, psychologists, and so on and so forth. They have divided rightly into two hemispheres, left and right. Each hemisphere has a portion called sector, and some sectors are allotted the place like scientific questioning, mathematical reasoning, including fine arts, art, music, dance, etc., etc. When they analyzed, they focused that most women students excel in fine arts like painting, stitching, designing, and so on and so forth. And very, very few of them, like our Prachi madam, are concentrating on science because scientific thought, scientific research depends much on concentration of mind. And to their surprise, they found that it is like a pointer moving from left hemisphere to right hemisphere, not concentrating on any sector of a hemisphere. That's why women students lack in scientific progress. When they think of algebra, my subject, mathematics, they immediately rush to fashion designer in the same vein and concentrate more on that. That is one. The second observation of mine is because you have stimulated my thought to a little extent. I go back to a great physicist, C.P. Snow, Lord C.P. Snow, He's a peculiar man. He wanted that knowledge should not be confined to one branch only. You can, humanities can understand science, science can also intelligibly understand humanities. As you are nicely tried to synthesize, there is nothing like a part of knowledge divisible into several sectors. But C.P. Snow said, for example, in a nice lecture called Read Lectures in the early part of 1960s, he gave a lecture in a London society asking people not to discriminate between humanities and science because science is as important as humanities. He said, when I say, can you understand velocity? This humanities can be interpreted as, can you read? Can you read means, do you understand velocity? The next example he gave is, can you read a drama of Shakespeare? In the scientific equivalent, it is, what is second law of thermodynamics? Thermodynamics says uh, the problem or your disorder increases with time. What is that disorder? Even the best philosophers who are who have assembled here, if allowed time, they would be chit-chatting like young children. So disorder increases with time. Bertrand Russell, our great philosopher and mathematician, commented that the Earth is receiving a warning from the second law of thermodynamics that the disorder would increase and it is a death sentence for the whole world. So these are some different nuances, branches of your thinking and my thinking, because we don't belong to the family of philosophers like the most of us are present here, including your in-law, Valmiki madam. Hmm? So these are some of the questions. But what is important here is, let us not discriminate between male and female, because females may have their own responsibility in raising a family, which is denied to male counterpart. We do not believe in reproduction by male persons or the male species at any position of time. What is important is, look at them, ask them, include them, go do away with the diversity. It is all inclusive. If science is having any meaning, it is, of course, it is a sort of objective thinking. It is a rational thinking. It is free from any sort of bias. If that is achieved, certainly we will say science Jindabad. Thank you very much for your nice analysis of a very abstract science called biology, and of course molecular biology heading towards all these things, nu- like nuclear physics. So we come across such type of innovations in days to come and help mankind to solve the existing problems of life. We may live longer than what we are supposed to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick comment on Dr. Behra's point about um, why women in sciences or mathematics, why they are running away. Because yes, there is inherent differences in men and women on how they learn certain things, how they perceive certain subject matter or certain knowledge. For example, like you were talking about concentrating, and being in science requires concentration, or being in math requires certain type of brain function. What DEI is, the philosophy behind DEI is to recognize these differences and allow for these differences, or allow concessions for these differences, while preparing a society that can include people with differences. So it's like I was saying before, is if we know, the more we know about how differently a woman's body behaves or reacts to a medicine, then we can treat it better, or we can be more conscious of including those differences when we do our studies and finding solutions that allow for those differences, rather than just saying, then sort of ignoring that difference and saying, oh, because it's different we cannot treat it, oh, or because if it's different you cannot do this. I think that is what I think, even the statement by Gandhiji was, if we can find our unity in that diversity, not ignore the diversity or not look at it as a problem, but rather look at it as a strength and include it in all our aspects of learning, aspects of research, then we become a better society. Rather than trying to say that, okay, this just doesn't work for this group, so we're not going to find a solution for this thing, or we're not going to find a solution for that. So I think the idea of looking at diversity or studying diversity is with the intention of being able to then include that diversity in all aspects of our life, and thereby making a more inclusive society. If I'm not sure if I made that clear, but yeah, that's. And I think Dr. Sheshadri had a question he has written in the comment.
Well, madam, thank you. Thank you. One thing comes to my mind right now. Well, as we are discussing that there are different sorts of bias that the very methodology of science involves. You see, there is a bias, and there is bias all over in the very methodology. But we say that the results of science are objective and unbiased. How can something, okay, be unbiased and objective, resulting from something that is biased and being not objective? Well, I say, as the feeling comes to me, what the results we talk of, that they are objective, they're unbiased, really they're objective to the extent for a particular space and time frame, and they are not objective for all time. Is this so? What? How
Yes,
can they be objective?
I agree that science is done in the context of uh, like Amita ma'am said, that science is done in the context of the society, right? Or who is doing the science, who is reading the results, who is doing that, is what makes. So scientific facts are, as facts, are objective in that sense, that yes, water does boil at 100 degrees. It will boil at 100 degrees no matter who boils it, where they boil it, or how they look, or what is their skin color, right? So that remains. But the type of scientific investigation that we are doing, or the questions we are asking, are of course in a context and by people who have their own biases and are limited in certain ways. So yes, we should always take those factors into account. This question came up a lot during COVID, where people were like, oh, why do scientists not know, is this vaccine going to work, or it's not going to work, or it's this? Because we can only answer things in the limited sphere of when, how the experiment was done. We cannot answer a question that is not been tested or tried, and we've tried to answer it in a very limited fashion, right? When you just do it in a global scale, people used to be like, oh, scientists are not really, they don't know what's going on with COVID. A lot of times people are, oh, you said take one vaccine, now you're saying take a booster, now you're saying this vaccine doesn't have efficiency. How do you guys not know? It's because when you try to take something that's done in a very limited way and apply it to a broader population, the dynamics of everything changes. So you are right about this, that it cannot be always objective and unbiased in the way the scientific knowledge is used or treated. The knowledge itself is objective, but in the context of the society, it's not. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. one more thing comes to my mind. Well, when we talk of the social sciences or the humanities, we focus more on the qualitative aspects when we forget the quantitative variations. But that is not so in science. Science is more largely based on the quantitative aspects, and it more or less or largely it denies the qualitative variations. So there is a need where humanities and science, they do come together to find a more say what to say, a more a strong result oriented things being done in science. There is a need of a mix between the humanistic way approach and the quantitative way approach that we have in science. So this is one more observation. Thank you so much. Well, we have with us Dr. Brundavan Rath, sir. Well, in the meantime, well, yes, sir. Would you like to say something, sir? Dr. Rath? Well, well, anybody in the group who intends to say something or has an observation or a question to make, or let us, well, we have Seshadri sir again raising the hand. Well, sir, we'll move to Seshadri sir, then we'll move to our admin, Professor Das. Yes,
It's a short
Professor Seshadri.
question. Uh,
Yes, Professor Seshadri. Yes, Professor Seshadri. Well,
I think he's
well,
muted. Dr. Sheshadri, you might need to unmute your mic.
Professor Seshadri, sir. Well, he has muted. I don't know. Well, in the meantime, let's move to our admin, Professor Das. Let us listen to him, and then we'll move to others. Or
Okay.
anybody? Yes,
Yes, yes, yes.
I
But
Dr.
wanted
Professor,
Mahana.
to
Yes, Dr. Mahana. Well,
okay,
please.
I
okay, okay,
think Dr.
okay.
Sheshadri is on now.
Yes, Dr. Seshadri, please.
Okay, okay, doctor.
uh, it's regarding the 80s incident where the government of India banned the export of rhesus monkeys to America and other places where radiation tests were done and then these animals were left to fend for themselves. The question was what happens to them? In India, for example, even in the armed forces and the police forces, there are animals being used. And these animals, they are retired with due respect and pension for the rest of their life. Normally, they are adopted by the same soldiers or policemen. So it's a matter of ethics as far as survival of those breeds are concerned after being heavily anatomically damaged by radiation. What has happened to that? Is any progress from there in
Uh,
scientific research?
yes. So we do work with
This
mice.
also applies to children, toddlers, infants in pediatric research.
Absolutely. So
Respect for life.
since then, a lot of things have changed in the way research is done in both animals as well as human subjects. There is tremendous amount of regulation on how we do these experiments, what we do with them as regards to animals as well as monkeys. First of all, the guiding principle right now is not to use animals or humans to do any research that can be done on an alternate model. So when we decided to, for example, most of our work we do on yeast cells or bacterial cells, or we do on cell lines, which are isolated cells or tissues in the lab. We only do very few experiments in the mice. So currently we are working on a drug that we need to test. It's for a very rare genetic disorder called Menkes disease, which is fatal in young, it affects male child, and it's genetic, and the children die by the age of 3, 4, 5 years old. It's an extremely debilitating disease. So only when we had thoroughly tested the drug in many different models, we went to the mouse model. We are required, so this is, I'm saying from my personal work in the lab, we are required to make sure that we only use mouse as a final step before we can move into the human things. And we have to make a plan. We have to use them humanely. We have to only use procedures on them that are absolutely required, cause least pain. And once we are done, those mice are retired, as you said, with a lot of dignity, and we of course, personally, I love animals, so would not do anything to harm them. But also in terms of actual institutional regulations, there are several layers. We have inspections every week where inspectors come to our animal facilities and make sure that the animals are treated well. This is the same when it comes to human subjects. We avoid working in young children at all. There is consent required, not only in terms of human working on humans, but working with any material that comes from any human being, like skin cells. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of this movie about the origin of the HeLa cell line, the Henrietta Lacks story. So this was a cell line. This is an immortal cell line. What I mean by cell line is these cells were taken from a woman way back in early 1900s, and those cells just keep growing in the lab. So these were actually immortalized cell line, and because they just keep growing in the lab, we all in the biomedical field started using this cell line to do many different experiments, especially to study cancer. And after many years, many researchers, biomedical and pharma companies made lots of money by using these cells and working on these cells. And people did not realize that these cells came from this particular woman who was an African American lady who came from a very low socioeconomic background. And only eventually did they go back and they sort of thanked her and they gave her some remuneration, and her children and her grandchildren benefited from all of that. But she was never aware that her cells were being used. And so, but this is back in the early 1900s. So we have learned as a scientific community, we have definitely learned from all of these experiences, like you said, back in the 1980s with the rhesus monkeys. And there are very strict procedures on how we use them, how we treat them, and how we eventually retire them. So, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Like this answer, yeah.
Madam, thank you so much for the response. Well, it's so difficult to deal with animals. Now, when it finally comes to the testing, the clinical trials with human beings, how difficult it would be then, how
Yeah.
things are
So,
managed.
yes, so this entire process takes many years. So we started working on this drug about 7-8 years ago, and we were able to demonstrate in mice that if usually if you don't give the drug, the mice that have this mutation die within 14 days after birth. Once we give the drug, they're able to survive and thrive. They live like normal mice. So it took us more than 2 years just to demonstrate this in mice. And now we are moving forward with a biotechnology pharma company. We have licensed this technology, like this knowledge. Our university and the company, they work together to develop first multiple levels of testing in labs in mice, and then we will petition the National Institute of Health to do a very small scale controlled clinical trial in some human patients. The first step of the trial is to actually inject the drug in normal people to make sure that the drug doesn't cause any harm. So first step is to make sure no harm is caused, and then it goes into to see if it has any effect on the human patients. And then after that, it goes into optimizing the exact dose, which can bring the effect but not cause any toxicity. And then eventually it will get to the market. So the whole process takes close to over 10 to 12 years when a drug is developed. In this case, because this is a rare disorder that is actually fatal and there is currently no other treatment available for this, it will be a little bit more fast tracked in that sense, because the patients don't have a choice currently. So it is a little bit urgent in that sense. So the scientific community does take that into consideration based on case by case basis. But there are many different regulatory agencies that are involved. There are scientists involved, universities, lawyers, patients, patient families, and it's really a team effort. Currently, in fact, as we speak right now, there are a few of these patients that are being treated in Spain based on compassionate based use of our drug. And Dr. Gohil, Dr. Vishal Gohil, who's our team leader, chief scientist, he is currently in Spain working with those teams, working with pharma companies to see how best to move forward so that we can get the drug to the patients soon. But correct testing is absolutely important, like Dr. Shishadri said, because we don't want to get into a situation where we use it improperly, and when it's not ready and when we haven't tested it enough and it has some really bad adverse side effects, that would be more detrimental to the patient than to get a drug that actually works and is treated. So on our side as scientists, we make sure maybe 200% or more, make sure that we do no harm first.
Oh, thank you so much, madam. Well, the researchers, especially in the medical field, they require lot of patience because
Patients,
it is
yes.
a lot of patience because it is not ending up in a day or a two, in a month or a year. It will take lot of time. It is only during
Most,
the COVID times that we could make clearances very fast. It
yeah,
is only during the COVID time.
yes. And
Lot of
most of
patience.
the time, like out of 100 times, 99.9% of the time, our experiments don't result in a drug. We have been lucky, and again, I would say I congratulate my entire team of researchers because it is a team effort, and we brought diverse voices in our team, and together with so much effort, we've been lucky that within our lifetime we've been able to go from studying the basic mechanism of how the mitochondria work, how certain genes work, how certain protein works, to then be able to find a drug and then to take it forward and hopefully benefit the society from it. But usually it takes several years of failed experiments to get to this point. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. Patience, passion, but also a lot of teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the good work that you are doing, madam, for the cause of humanity. It's a great thing that you are doing, and that requires a lot of patience because if a bit of patience is lost, then it disturbs the entire project. So, a lot of patience is required. Thank you so much, madam. Well, we have with us Dr. Maharana. Well, he has something in mind. Well, please start.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Rao. So, I was carefully listening to all the observations and questions made by uh, different scholars and different professors today. And the way Madam Trivedi is responding to all the questions, very excellent. And Trivedi Madam has a very comprehensive knowledge in all kinds of research area, though she is doing research on mitochondrial biochemistry, genetics, and medicines. But one question comes to mind that there is many research many researchers have done on science, and many scientists there. I do not want to repeat their names. Okay, many scientists there who have done research on the nature of plants. That plants can be very sensitive to human love and human that is a human love and human care and human psychology. But is that scientific knowledge which is generated from their research is objective and unbiased? That when the human beings, when many scientists there, they have they have done many researches that plants can also react the human love, the human care. So how do we react on it? And is this scientific knowledge, which is done from their scientific research, is objective and unbiased? One thing. Then another question comes to mind that once upon a time, okay, there was there was an a study, research in physics on God particle, and if the research undertaken by different scientists on God particle, is it objective and unbiased? What's the reaction?
Honestly, I have not read in much detail in both these fields that you're talking about, the plant research about plants being sensitive to human psychology and human love and care, and also about the God particle. So what I'm my answer is basically just not from reading those papers, but what I was about to say that um, if these papers have been published in scientific peer-reviewed journals, then they must have come from some scientific data that was generated. So the way the publication process works in the biomedical or any science research field here, and I think all over the world, is you are required to submit your data and your paper to a journal, which then sends out your manuscript to experts in the field who review your data, and then they give you suggestions or they ask you questions about how you did your experiments and what all the details and such. And only then they are able to publish this to the public. So I believe if that is the case, then there must be experiments done and there must be science done. From a personal point of view, if I want to say, I do feel that a lot of the research, again, the questions that are asked are not objective. They are biased by the experiences of the human beings who are asking the question. But if the experiments are done in the right way, then the knowledge that comes from that should be objective. It should be unbiased. If they have used the correct controls, if they have included all kinds of testing, then that should be the case. Again, I have not read those specific papers, but that is my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Well, we have it as our admin. Dr. Das, are you ready? Well,
Am I
please.
audible? I'm audible, sir.
You are audible, sir.
Okay. First of all, I congratulate Madam for having a very beautiful discussion.
Voice is low. I don't know whether it is low to
Yes,
my
yes.
system or I don't know.
Now is it okay?
Now audible. Now better, fine.
Okay, okay,
Now
okay.
fine.
I always appreciate the speakers at the end, and I believe in appreciation because that inspires us to go ahead. While Madam was speaking, my wife was whispering in my ear that she's from America, but she's speaking very simple English. So that was a best appreciation for Madam.
Professor Dr. Das,
Yes,
she is wonderful. They have never got this. I am amazed by this.
and she has also written. She has written
Yes.
that message in the chat box.
Yeah.
That very simple
Oh,
English and very lucid presentation. She wrote first time in the
thank
chat
you.
box.
I did not realize this was.
Usually she never writes. Okay. Anyway, I shall speak something what is not spoken yet, but that is a token of appreciation. Uh, there was a time when science was very scientific, very objective. Both science and scientists were confined to the laboratory, the physical world, the study of data collection, the physical aspect of the study. But scientists were not comfortable in their social life, in their personal family life. They were living a life of frustration, and many scientists also commit suicide. And their family relation was very bad. That is one type of abnormality. Today, what Madam was focusing, as I understood, we are not discussing about science. We are discussing about the personality of a scientist. We are now living in such a age We are all knowledgeable. We understand what is science, what is philosophy. But now we are focusing on the personality of the scientist, personality of a philosopher, personality of an engineer, personality of a professor. That is more important. So what is that personality? That should be a complete personality, Purna Vyaktitva. So going beyond the physical apparatus, physical possibilities, now we expect the other aspects of a personality of a man, his emotional makeup, his intellectual ability, and also his spiritual thought, along with the physical aspect. In physical aspect, we have a very well equipped laboratory. There is no lack of it. We have that, and we have materials for study. We have computer. We have everything digital. We are living in a digital world. So physically, we are well. There is no problem. But when we are speaking about the emotional aspect, many things are discussed in this webinar regarding the emotional aspect. Shraddha, love for research, compassion, these all belong to the emotional therapy towards a research. Otherwise, it is not possible. Now we are focusing on that. Without that, a scientist is abnormal. He is not normal. If a person, we don't need science at the cost of a scientist. We don't need that. If a scientist will survive, then research oriented science will grow, will glow. So, so that is the emotional aspect. What is the intellectual aspect? In intellectual aspect, we were discussing that it should be unbiased. It should be free from all types of limitations. This is the intellectual aspect. Even no gender bias. I am not. I am not one with Professor Behra. That when he said that women are behind the in comparison with the men, I shall say rather the opposite is true now. Now girls or women are very much ahead of a human or their male counterparts in exam results in every sphere. They are well. So we should not have this type of a psychology because the time has gone. Now we are focusing on that even the gender bias should not be there. We should have a free pursuit of truth. We should have a free pursuit of knowledge. We should have a free pursuit of research. Otherwise, it is not research. It is something else. So this is the intellectual aspect of a scientist. And the spiritual aspect is that we should include everything. Spirituality means all inclusive. In spirituality, there is no sense of exclusiveness that we in our research something is excluded, women are excluded, the environment is excluded, that is excluded. No exclusion. So when we are talking about all inclusive, that is the spiritual aspect of a scientist. And in spiritual aspect, what a man does, he takes care of the other three aspects: the physical synthesis of physical, emotional, and intellectual aspects. When we are able to synthesize these three aspects, then only we are spiritual. Otherwise, not. If one is lacking, we are not spiritual. Spiritual means we are all inclusive. We are physical, at the same time we are emotional, at the same time we are intellectual, and if we are all these three, that is equal to our spiritual aspect. So we now need this type of researcher, this type of scientist. We should not run after science. We should build scientists of this mentality, of this inner makeup. Inner makeup. What should be our inner makeup? Only the university study, only the degrees and certificates are not enough. We should have, therefore it is not only objective, this is also subjective, because we have a mind. Everything comes from our mind. So our mind should be stable. Our mind should be like Sthita Prajna, that madam said, concentration. Our mind should be concentrated. That means not only it is unbiased, it is very much concentrated on its objectivity. So that is the point. So I think today we, we are discussing about the repressing the scientists, repressing the scientists with the complete package of their personality. So all these points that we discussed about love, compassion, gender bias, everything that we discussed, all these points come under these four aspects of a human personality, and scientist is not an exception to it. Scientist is also a man. He should be. Therefore, now we are discussing scientist philosophers. So therefore, Amitabh Albing was asking a question about ethics. Yes, now we are discussing about ethics of science. Therefore, we are taking care of animal rights. We are taking care of human rights. We are talking about humanity. We are talking about the goal of science, where there will be no harm to society, no harm to any life. This is ethics. Okay, so I understood like this. I just tried to say something different in this way. Madam, you please have your uh, observation on my observation.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This is, yeah, it's a wonderful take on what we are trying to do here today. I think you have hit the nail on the head. Where what we're trying to do here is, in the past, like you said, everybody thought of a scientist who locks himself in the lab, usually a man who locks himself in the lab and is spending hours and hours adding some chemicals in test tubes and flasks and whatever, and then saying, okay, eureka, this is what I have discovered, and this is the new science. But that's not the case any longer. We all have access to technology, information, physical facilities, microscopes, or what have you, different types of instruments. What we now are starting to look at is the person behind the lab coat, on the lab bench, who is doing the experiment, because that is what matters in how science progresses, how it affects the society. And yes, for the longest time, we did not consider those aspects. And as far as the scientist as a human being, and what aspects are important in the scientist, of course, compassion, kindness, all of those things. But um, there are certain things that do help if you are doing science. Like Dr. Narayana Rao had said, it requires patience, it requires passion, uh, it also requires creativity. A lot of people think that if you are in science, you are not very creative. You're just looking at facts and figures. But that's not true, because you do have to understand the knowledge, put it in context, and you have to come up with creative ideas to do this. So yes, certainly now I think that, like Dr. Dash said, the focus is on who is the person in the lab coat, and what if we want to call it, what kind of baggage does that person carry as a human, and how that affects the way they do the science. So we all need to make sure that different people come with different strengths and weaknesses, but we can make space for all of that if we focus on who the scientist is as a human. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to your wife, to Dr. Tripathi. So I see her comment in the comment box. I am, yes, although I have been living in America for a while, I am still originally from Mumbai, and I can never get Mumbai out of me. So I think my English is still very much from home.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. Well, we have it
They,
is
they,
Dr. Well,
This is
Muhammad Salahuddin, he has raised his hand. Well, let us listen to him. Muhammad
one
Salahuddin.
moment of interruption.
Sir.
As Professor Das said, his wife was too delighted to listen to Prachi Madam. It is again a gender bias on a scientific platform. So that, let us hope this sort of bias would not be there. And because a woman is a woman, a scientist is a scientist, so let us not mix up these two races or two sexes. Prachi Madam, thank you very much for all the patience you have
Oh,
presented before us. Not only patience, we need patience. COVID 19 generated a lot of patients all over the world, and every nation rose to their best
yes,
in inventing a sort of drug or some injection as a preventive measure. I think
yes.
India could have been faster had it not been the multiple death cases resulted from this deadly pandemic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, the logistics of every country and every society are very different. So definitely the way India responded was was much better and beyond expectations of especially considering the number of humans and the logistics of controlling the pandemic. It fared much better than what was predicted or expected in the West, and that is a great example of how sometimes bias comes into picture and some preconceived notions um, come into picture because you just assume that, oh, okay, this society, this particular section of the world is not going to be able to handle this, only we are going to be able to handle it better and faster or whatever. But uh, I think, yeah, the response all over the world was just fantastic. And like I said, that did show us that when all of us, we forget our borders and our limitations and our biases, uh, we can make the world definitely a much better place for everybody. Yeah.
Madam, I have a personal question to you. Can I ask?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yes. So,
There's no guarantee I might answer.
okay.
No, please. I'm just kidding. Yes.
But that is philosophical. You are smiling all the in the total session. I shall say whether it is your laboratory smile or your homely smile.
Oh,
So
home,
this is
home.
the laboratory. The webinar session is the laboratory for a scientist. So the way you are smiling in the total session, is it the laboratory smile or your personality? I was talking about the personality. What is a scientist in his personal life, in his family, in the marketplace? Therefore, Dr. Behra always say that Bertrand Russell and others, many scientists, they believe in humor, because they spend sometimes like a joker. Otherwise, they cannot come to the seriousness of research. So anyway, madam, this was my personal question to you.
Yeah. No. I like, yeah, I think I'm always smiling in the lab also and at home also
Very nice,
because
very nice, very nice,
I
very
just,
nice.
no, I think I feel like maybe this is something in the society, or maybe it's in India or something, that we do feel that scientists are always very serious people and you have to have a very serious personality. But I have found mostly that, especially because most of biomedical science is teamwork. We work in teams. We collaborate with a lot of different people. So what I have realized is people respond better when they know that they don't have they don't have to take everything super seriously all the time. Um, I find that to be the most sort of, I don't know, maybe sometimes pretentious to be very serious all the time. So I like.
Madam, one sentence. Now we have become that. This is the difference. Now a
Uh,
scientist is smiling. We have achieved this.
True. I mean, I understand when a scientist is in their zone, or when we are thought, like, for example, if I'm doing an experiment, or if I'm teaching somebody or showing my students how to do an experiment, I'm very serious because the focus is required, the concentration is required. But once that is done, and when we are discussing results, or we are thinking about what is our next step, or what is it that we should question next, we tend to be more relaxed, so that it allows for the thoughts to just flow more easily. At least for myself, I feel that. So I think, yeah, smiling helps.
100% correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Das, Dr. Prachi. Well, the scientists, they need to be a bit lighter in the mind. It is only then new thoughts come in. If you are too serious, thoughts will not flow in because everything gets choked in the mind and you get confined to a particular standpoint, and fresh ideas, creativity will not come. In order that creativity comes in, you need to be light, you need to be relaxed, and that allows the mind to think new, think fresh, and fresh ideas come in, and suddenly, out of nothing, things result out. It is because
True.
only when the mind is relaxed. Okay, so that is very important for a scientist. Thank you so much, Dr. Prachi, for your thought-provoking lecture. It has generated more of philosophy than anything else, and we are really thankful to your for your effort and for coming in family.
Dr. Rao,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
today we had a very long session. Now it is about 9 p.m.
Uh-huh.
And we all
It's
enjoyed.
really.
We all enjoyed. We all enjoyed.
Very
Thank you.
long session, but madam is not tired.
Madam,
Still, she looks
Prachi
fresh,
madam.
and as if she has just started. Okay, she is not tired. She's still
No,
not
because it's morning here. It's a morning time here, so I'm
tired.
very late for you all. So thank you for staying.
Madam, you see, we are discussing about science and scientific investigation, but there is an aesthetic flavor in this long session. That I focus. We should have that. And Amrita Valmiki is an exponent in this area. How life is mystical,
So,
how there is an aesthetic sense in the, otherwise we are not a scientist, otherwise we are not a philosopher. Thank you,
True,
thank you.
true.
Oh God.
I have learned a lot about
No, it's a
creating that space, and creating that feel of openness and feeling welcomed.
Thank you. Okay,
Hello.
now we shall go for
Hello.
vote of thanks.
It again drives us to partiality, maybe because of family relations and because they are all women, ladies. Thank you.
no, 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 no.
No, no. In fact, if that was the case, it would be opposite because she's an in-law.
Yes, I am her mother-in-law.
uh,
Okay.
Not very strict, not very firm, not very, say, argumentative. You are very polite.
Dr.
And
Behra,
that patience gift,
Dr.
yes.
Behra,
We stop here.
Dr.
We
Behra,
stop here. Yes, sir. Yes.
I shall make a joke. Have you,
Please do. Please
have you,
do.
yes, have you seen daughter-in-law and daughter-in mother-in-law,
Mother-in-law.
uh,
Right.
smile in one screen? This is
Yes,
very
when
rare.
they
This
wish
is
to
rare. This is
when they
very
wish to
rare.
kill each
And
other, they smile.
this is what we are expecting. This is what we are expecting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Now we shall have
Okay.
vote of thanks and we shall end this program. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
very nice. We had a very nice session. Okay, now I
thank you.
thank Dr. Prachi and all those who took part in the interactive session. It was nice learning for all of us. Well, let us move to Dr. Maharana for formal vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Maharana.
Okay, thanks so much. As So before proposing a vote of thanks to Madam Trivedi, so it's an honor to extend gratitude to Balming Madam to have introduced Dr. Prachi in philosophy family. So today we have listened the reaction, observations, and comments of Dr. Sesadri, Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Amita Balbiki, Dr. Radhanta Behera, and our advini, Professor Pramod Kumar Das, and our Dr. Rao. And the way Madam Trivedi has responded all the questions, all the observations, it is very excellent. And for the first time that we have witnessed such a speaker like Dr. Trivedi, who is very excellent and exponent in the scientific research, and who can talk in such a simple that is simple manner, and who can give clarity that is in scientific research. It is very excellent. And Dr. Trivedi has proved herself as an excellent philosopher in the field of science, and she has shown her critical reflection on her doctoral and postdoctoral study and the scientific conclusion that she has attained. Her way of thinking, her way of clarity, and the conceptual differences that she has made today, and her rethinking at the concept on the concepts like diversity, equity, inclusion, etc. Okay, on this scientific research has made her a reflective thinker, has made her a critical thinker, has made herself a very creative thinker and creative scholar and creative philosopher also. So today, the clarity that she has made in philosophy family is very excellent, and it has made us very impressive. So today, I do not find anyone how to propose vote of thanks to Madam Prachi. So really, we are obliged. Really, we are honored with your presence and with your talk, with your inspiring words on the philosophical issue. So today, with this, I propose a hearty vote of thanks to you, and I extend my gratitude to Madam Amita and to all the senior professors in philosophy and all the viewers on the webinar. Thanks so much to all of you. Now, I would like to request Professor Pramod Kumar to wind up
Yes,
the
sir.
session.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. One sentence I shall speak more. I have left something to appreciate, madam, that in spite of her vast knowledge,
Your voice
many
is low, sir. Your voice is
yes,
low.
yes, yes. In spite of her vast knowledge, two times or three times she has admitted that I have not studied this area. I don't know this. I don't know this. This is a great thing. This is the starting point of research. We should admit we should not ignore our ignorance. We should admit that. We should acknowledge that. That is the humbleness that I found in the personality of a madam, and that should be the personality of a scientist. Yes, this is my limit. I don't know this. Then that will open the door for knowledge. Thank you. Really,
Dr. Das,
we had
Dr. Das,
yes, sir.
the most important thing is this, that we are now having 22 people with us and listening to this deliberation, and which is not ordinarily
Generally found.
we are sitting here for 2 and more than about 3 hours. So
Yes, yes.
that shows the theme and the
Jhunjhunwala
person.
students are there. So
Jhunjhunwala.
they are very, they were very inquisitive to
Yes,
know
yes,
about
yes,
it.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
A second thing, I shall request, madam. Madam, please prepare other topics to be with us in future. We shall be benefited. We shall be, and that will be your greatness. Okay, madam.
Oh,
Yes,
it
yes.
will be a privilege. I will certainly think
You
about
you
some
you
other.
give you give your series of talks here. Yes,
Um,
thank you,
I,
ma'am.
I
Thank
hope
you,
I
ma'am. I
can
am, I am, I
bring
am, I
some
am, I
more
am speaking
things.
seriously. I am speaking seriously.
Sure, sure.
Okay,
I
thank you.
have I have a little suggestion. You can have an article on this, the ethics of biomedical research.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that will be
Yeah,
helpful for our applied philosophy students, the
I
biomedical research and the ethics,
sure.
and with
Yeah.
the all the recent articles that you are getting there, you can have a very good discussion on that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think this is a good suggestion because just to quickly say what I took away from today's discussion. First of all, I want to really thank everyone for staying. It's late over there. Uh, I um, I really find myself privileged to be speaking in front of all of you accomplished professors and philosophers, and also students of philosophy, because I'm completely not in that field. So giving this much time on a Sunday evening to somebody who's a student of philosophy, I can call myself if I can. Then thank you so much for that. But I also did take away from this talk this realization that some of the things which I took for granted that everybody realizes about biomedical science is actually not true. For example, from the question that Dr. Sheshadri asked about animal research and human research, I assumed that everyone would know that there are a lot of regulations and rules in place to do these things ethically. But I guess it's not so common knowledge, and it kind of makes sense because it is common knowledge to people in science and scientific field how much we have come progress in terms of ethics in biomedical sciences. But I think this is an excellent topic in the future. I will prepare something on this, but I may need some time because I haven't read much deeply on the history of this thing too deeply. But yeah, I would at some point be happy to.
Madam, you see, one area you can also explore cloning the myth and reality. So that is also very important. So you can
Because
explore that.
I think I can cover some of that within the
Yeah,
ethics
yeah, in
because
ethics of
the
biomedical research.
newest cloning, of course, is a big ethical black hole, but also the newest discoveries in biomedical sciences is what is called CRISPR-Cas9. A couple of years ago, two women scientists won the Nobel Prize for discovering this mechanism. This is what is called molecular scissors. These are basically proteins that help to cut and paste DNA, which means we now, as scientists, have the ability to go and change anybody's DNA, the genes, the way we want to. We can make precise cut paste changes
Very
inside the
nice, very
DNA
nice, very
of
nice.
any animal, human being, anybody. And this is going to be the next ethical frontier in biomedical sciences.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe, yeah, we
Genetic
can.
engineering that you are talking about.
Yeah, it is the next step of genetic engineering, and
Yeah, yeah.
it is wonderful in terms of developing medicines and developing cures for diseases, but it is extremely scary in terms of what somebody can do with it if it falls in the wrong hand. It is kind of nuclear power in biomedical sciences, what we think of having
Thank you,
nuclear
madam.
energy.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, thank you
Madam,
so much.
madam,
You can,
madam.
you may also include the gene sequencing and its completeness. It is not yet mapped fully. So, in what way it would be essential, particularly when innocent animals being sacrificed for the welfare of human beings? It is just a question of seriousness to ponder about. Please include
Sure.
this also, because presently AI has included many things. It can do wonderful things
Yeah.
and also something very distasteful to our human living. So please, because you are in the uh, throb of invention, I can say, you can throw more light upon it. Thank you very much. Come again. Let us meet again. Yeah.
Yes,
Keep
ma'am.
your smile. Your natural smile,
smiling.
motherly smile,
Keep smiling.
not from laboratory, but from your house. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Madam, last sentence. Last sentence. We shall tolerate only 3 months gap. So we shall invite you maximum January, in the month of January. Okay? After 3 months.
Okay.
So we can tolerate more. We can tolerate only this much gap. 3 months. Maximum 3 months. Okay?
You have some wonderful speakers lined up
Yes,
on
ma'am.
your
Yes, ma'am. Please,
thing.
please,
I
please
saw your.
introduce. Please introduce, madam. Please
Yeah,
introduce. We are waiting. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
yeah.
ma'am. That will be your great contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we are closing this session. Grateful to all of you. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Namaskar,
you.
namaskar,
Good
madam.
night.
Bye.
If, madam, one more thing. If time permits, to attend our meetings, if time permits. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I will try, but I do watch the YouTube recordings that Dr. Das shares after the meetings.
Okay, madam.
Yeah,
Okay, madam. That's also
yeah.
great. That's
I will try
thank you.
my best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank